The social media app Parler and ripping it off the internet was a team effort. It took more than simply Amazon and Apple and Google. Amy Peikoff is the chief policy officer there at Parler. She joins us to tell us which other companies were involved in this historic attack on free speech and our civil liberties, because you should know their names. Amy, it's great to see you tonight. Thank you for coming on. I'm sorry Parler is still not up, as I'm sure our viewers know. Tell us, if you would, because we want to know who they are, who participated in this attack on the First Amendment and on your company?
Hi, Tucker. Thanks. So other companies that were involved were Twilio, who dropped us. We are also having issues with a CAPTCHA, using any sort of a CAPTCHA in our program. Flurry dropped us. There's also people that you weren't really aware of unless you were into the tech, the people who actually connect you to the internet and provide nodes, and the hosts, who domain hosts, etc. And those are the people on the tech side that I'm not as aware of. But there are a number of people involved. And whether they're all working together or whether they're all just caving into the same cancel culture pressure, obviously at Parler we do think that we were singled out unfairly, because this content that nobody wants on anywhere on their platforms, this inciting content that is wrong, was unfortunately everywhere, as you've read in stories this week from the Washington Post and elsewhere.
I assume most of them are just greedy, soulless little robots who will do whatever it takes to continue to loot the country. Well, it's not like they have an ideological agenda.
Whether they have agenda or not, here's one of the things that I think is going on, at least with the bigger tech companies. People have been talking about collusion. Is there collusion involved? But what if the truth is actually a lot worse, and that Parler is just the latest casualty in a sort of Faustian bargain that big tech has made with statist government? And by this I mean that big tech has made itself dependent on immunity with respect to its two major prongs for monetization that it depends on. So one of them is this content moderation, removing pieces of content. They have immunity for that under Section 230, and that also includes the curation of feeds and the algorithms that they use to do that increase engagement. Those are all just immune from scrutiny and from liability. And then the second, of course, is the data pillaging, as we like to call it. At Parler, we don't believe that you should be making money by monetizing personal data of people. And both of those things have become part of this bargain. I don't know if you saw the Wall Street Journal piece. It was the big tech versus the Constitution, save the Constitution from big tech. And they talked about the fact that the immunity of 230, when combined with the pressure from people in Congress telling Facebook and telling Twitter that they need to remove more hate speech and do more about misinformation, this is in effect censorship by proxy. And then with respect to data, if you look at the consent decree between United States and Facebook, the FTC and Facebook from last year, you could see in that Facebook was allowed to continue its data mining practices that help monetize it, and at the same time maybe the FTC and the DOJ can get backdoors into data under the terms of that consent decree. This is a very cozy relationship that I think is very disturbing, and Parler's model doesn't depend on either of those things.
Cozy doesn't even describe it. I mean,
yeah, it's scary. It's really scary.
Apple helped write our current immigration law. Some of the liberal children in the current White House considered giving the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Tim Cook of Apple, who hates the White House and the country.
I was going to tell you that with respect to this particular fight, I see Apple as an ally. I don't know if you saw that Tim Cook has said that Parler could come back on to the App Store after we improve our content moderation. So,
thank you, Tim Cook. I'm really great. I'm glad. Well, hopefully he'll wake up in a good mood tomorrow and grant us that favor. Who made these people God anyway? I mean, what world is this where Tim Cook gets to decide?
But see, at least they stand for privacy, Tucker. At least they stand for privacy.
Yeah, well, Amy, I appreciate you coming on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Facebook is trying to delete me. Big tech is trying to delete us, our movement. We must stop them. You are smart. Long ago, you stopped believing in the corrupt corporate media. You canceled the newspapers and cable shows and began reading your news from social platforms. Dominant on those platforms were conservative voices, like mine. We are the Americans who did not have a voice in traditional media. Honestly, do you think the left wants me to have a platform to speak? But I can have a voice. Here, on my own social platforms. I can be heard. That freedom infuriates the left, who used to own complete control over our information. So they hatched a plan to silence me and all of us conservatives. And Facebook is paying them for it. Here is how it works. In 2016, hysterical liberals had to find someone to blame for their humiliating loss to Donald Trump. In their minds, they could not possibly have lost due to their own horrendous candidates or policies or their own failing message, so they attacked the one thing that they did not have total control over: social media companies. They applied extreme pressure to silence or censor fake news, which was just a fancy way of saying news that they don't like. Facebook bent to that pressure and created a fact-checker network with godlike powers over all of us. Here is how Facebook fact-checking works. A website you have never heard of, run by partisan beta leftists, stalk the pages of your favorite conservative personalities. Whenever we say anything they disagree with, these fact-checkers write a vicious partisan hit piece. Then they harass us and our audience by slapping hazardous warning labels on what we have posted. Many times, those labels say missing context or disputed. Yes, thanks, Facebook. Every political argument in America is disputed. Every argument is indeed missing some context. But the insanity continues. These hack checkers, as I like to call them, would be just an annoyance, but Facebook gives them the ability to destroy the reach of our content, so we cannot communicate with you. They demonetize our pages so we can't make a living producing content for our audiences. And here is the breathtaking part. Most of these fact checks are pure partisan bile. They are false, fake, untrue. But there is no recourse for your favorite conservative creators. We are held at gunpoint by these partisan hacks, and Facebook is giving them the gun. This is why I am suing the Facebook fact checkers. I'm suing them on behalf of you, your favorite creators and news sites, on behalf of our freedom of speech and thought. So who are these hack checkers? Well, I'm suing a site called Lead Stories. Lead Stories is run by a former CNN employee of 26 years who makes a living cannibalizing and slandering conservative content and creators. His website has published disputed fake news stories, including one that went after my content personally. And so I'm going after him personally. Here is an important question. Who funds Lead Stories? According to their own masthead, Lead Stories is funded by Facebook and Google, along with ByteDance. And what is ByteDance? It's a Beijing-based company that owns the TikTok spyware app. Our own Justice Department says the company is a national security threat and compromised by the Communist Party of China. Facebook then is paying for fact checkers funded by an arm of the Communist Party of China to censor my content here in America. The Communist Party of China has more say over my content than the First Amendment. This is insanity. It's un-American. It's dangerous. And it needs to stop. This is why I am fighting. Our freedoms are at stake. Our movement is at stake. We know these battles are taking place all over the world. Do you wish to support me in my efforts against these hack checkers? Well, the easiest thing you can do right now is share this video. If you wish to donate in support, you can head to www.factcheckzuck.com. We will fight and we will win.
いやこれね